Hi, I'm Tom Landon. The program you're about to watch was recorded live at the historic Grandin Theater in Roanoke. Since we started the Echo channel, we've made every effort to record as many Hoot and Holler storytelling shows as we can. If you appreciate seeing programs like this one and the fact that we make them available online and on demand to a global audience, I hope you'll consider supporting Blue Ridge PBS by becoming a member. These programs aren't cheap to produce, and we're actively seeking underwriting to support the recording, editing, and distribution of Hoot and Holler so that we can continue to make these heartfelt and personal tales available to those who are unable to attend them live. If you'd like to learn more about sponsorship, please drop me a line by email at tlandon@blueridgepbs.org. And enjoy the show.
Blue Ridge PBS and Echo present Hoot and Holler, a live storytelling event recorded at the historic Grandin Theater in Roanoke, Virginia.
I met this woman very briefly at the Roanoke Writers Conference back in January. She read a little snippet of what you're about to hear, just a little teaser, and I basically tackled her and said, I don't know who you are or what you're about or anything about you, but you will share a story at Hoot and Holler. So she was, handpicked and was given no choice but to be here tonight. She is a delight. She's a writer and a professor of English. She grew up in a military family. Her father was an army officer during World War II, and her mother was a French war bride. She has moved around a lot before settling in Roanoke in the early 90s. This is not nearly enough of a biography, but you're about to get a little bit of a backstory. Please put your hands together. First-time storyteller, Marilyn Moriarty.
What a difference 50 years makes. It was 1973. Tina Turner was still performing with Ike. The Vietnam War was still continuing. And I got involved in a prison escape. I was a 20-year-old undergraduate at the University of Florida, an English major, and an active member of the fencing club. In the school newspaper, I read an ad from an inmate at Rayford Prison. He wanted to write to someone about art and literature, and he wanted to exchange creative writing. I found a pen pal. Vincent and I sent letters back and forth about a year. We exchanged stories. But in between the pages of a really nice story, like the one with a father and a grandfather doing something with horses, he hinted at the horrors of prison life, like a shanked dude whose skull wouldn't flush down the prison toilet. Shanked dude? That was murder, wasn't it? I didn't know if it was true. I didn't know what I should do about it. After all, he was writing stories. And if something like that did happen, it happened long before I knew him. Besides, it was easy to see the good in him. I was only 20. When Vince got on work release at a plant nursery near Rayford, he sent me a letter inviting me to lunch. He could only take an hour. He would bring a new story. I would bring lunch. Because I didn't have a car, I borrowed one from my fencing teammate, Christian. He gave me his car keys to a green Chevy Malibu with a warning. My fencing bag is in the back seat. Don't open the bag. My dirty socks are in it. So on a Friday morning, I drove north with a picnic basket and Christian's fencing bag on the back seat and Vincent's letter folded in my purse. At the nursery, I pulled up to a sentry booth and told the guard I had come to have lunch with Vince. The guard said I couldn't come in. I said I had been invited. He said, "Are you crazy, lady? He's a convict." I never liked it when people told me what I could or could not do. Even before the women's movement was cranking up consciousness on patriarchy. My ire rose and then fell. It was kind of a long drive for nothing, but if I got home early, I could get some ice cream before General Hospital started. The guard gave me permission to turn around in the lot. I looked down the road and I saw a figure in prison whites. I'd never seen Vincent before in person, but who else would be waving a manila envelope? I gunned the engine. I knew it was wrong, but I figured I could just zip down, grab the envelope, turn around like the Pony Express. It wouldn't take a sec. I pulled up to him. He threw his story through the open window into the back seat, and then he pulled out a knife and held it to my throat and said, "Slide over." I did just that. I tried to fasten my seatbelt as the car flew over bumps. The rear of the car fishtailed, knocking me into the passenger door. The speedometer ticked past 40. I looked at the speedometer thinking how mad Christian was going to be if anything happened to his car. So I asked Vincent to slow down. A car horn blasted behind us. The guard at the gate had started following us. I didn't know it at the time, but he had a shotgun. We were now on a chase. I noticed we were speeding into the woods, not out. This did not seem like a good escape plan. So I asked Vincent again to slow down, to stop, to please let me out at the corner, even though I knew there was no corner in the woods. But Vincent stopped. And as he did, the guard arrived, hopped out of his car, jerked Vincent out of the car, locked him in the back of the station wagon. Then he came over to my car, pulled the keys out of the ignition, and he said the police were coming for me. I sat in the middle of Florida woods without car keys to run the radio or air conditioning. I couldn't go anywhere. They didn't have cell phones in those days, and I wasn't sure how long my wait would be. So I tried to make the best of things. I grabbed the picnic basket and the story. I hopped up on the hood of the car, popped the top on a tab, and waited to be arrested. The sheriff sent 2 men in a car to take me and Chris John's car back to jail. They asked if I had any weapons, which left me stuttering about the fencing bag, which looked like it might be holding a machine gun, which the dispatcher thought it was. Although when they unloaded the car, they opened the bag and found Chris John's dirty socks. The deputies also searched the car for money and plane tickets. They thought I was going to bust Vince out of prison and run away to South America. I didn't even know the name of all the countries in South America. They eventually found the picnic basket and found the letter which said he only had an hour for lunch. By then it was pretty clear I had not intended a breakout. What did he tell you he was in for? The sheriff asked. Car theft, I said. The deputy printed out 3 dot matrix pages. Drugs, stealing, theft, assault, carrying a concealed weapon, grand theft auto. The sheriff and the deputies painted a grim picture of what might have happened. They thought he was going to take me out to the woods, rape, and kill me. When the sheriff said, we would have been looking for a body, my throat closed up and I couldn't speak. I felt like a child who awoke from a terrible nightmare. And while I wanted to be in a room with people, I didn't want to talk about the nightmare. I reviewed the facts. Vincent brought a knife to lunch. I brought a picnic basket. The sheriff suggested Vince had tricked me. You know how it is when you're in the wrong and you know you're in the wrong. There's only one thing left for you to do. Make it worse. While being stupid and being criminal are usually 2 different things, I managed to combine the 2 when I said, I take existential responsibility for my actions. I said, the deputy said, Lowell Prison for Women, 2 years. That's the penalty for aiding and abetting. I was confused. I narrowly avoided a shallow grave in a Florida wood, but now I was also an accomplice to my own attempted murder. Victim or accomplice, which was I? I didn't know. I was just really worried what I was going to tell my dad. I wanted to finish college, and I wanted a teaching job. A prison record would keep me out of jail. So I eventually admitted that, yeah, maybe I was tricked. The entire tone of the meeting changed. The deputy asked me to type my statement. We went upstairs to his office, and I was happily pounding away on the typewriter, now with a cup of coffee and a cigarette. The deputy stayed in the room with me. There was a commotion downstairs. A man came up and said the prison had sent a van to pick Vincent up and take him back to Rayford. I stopped typing. Where was he? He was in the room next door. I had thought it was safe. I had remained calm in the car chase. I had stayed polite under questioning. I had stayed so calm that the sheriff and deputy needed to shake me up. And shake me up they did when they said we would have been looking for a body. But learning Vincent was in the next room with only a wall between us made my breath freeze in my chest. I started to hyperventilate. I was hyperventilating so rapidly it sounded like hiccups. Tears squeezed out amid the hiccups. I didn't see Vince leave. My hiccups must have really annoyed the deputy because he offered me a tour of the jailhouse. So I followed him downstairs and walked around the sheriff's office, and the walking normalized my breathing. The sheriff showed me photographs of stills they had busted and drug paraphernalia they had confiscated. Vincent was sent back to prison. 3 months had been added to his sentence. After he got out within the year, he would later move to California and has since passed away from cancer. No charges were filed against me, so I was ready to go home. But that was not to be. The sheriff had called my father. They would not let me out on my own recognizance. My dad was a widower and a decorated Army veteran of 2 wars who now taught 6th grade. He lived in Jacksonville, Florida. At the end of the school day on a hot Florida Friday afternoon, he was going to have to make a long drive to Baker County Jail in McClenny. He hated the heat. He hated long drives. Christmas and holidays, he would say, "Can't you take the bus?" When his car pulled up in the lot, I ran out to hug him. "They were really nice, Dad. They gave me a tour." I waited outside on the porch while he went to talk to the sheriff. I thought it would only take 5 minutes. He would sign something, but they must have had a long conversation. 15 minutes later, my dad came out. "They didn't give me the tour," he said. "Do you want to get something to eat?" I asked him. I wasn't hungry, but I wanted to sit inside the circle created by my father's presence. I could tell him everything, and he would not be derailed by the drama or judge me for my naivete. He would let me be all things I was, innocent and guilty, deliberate and duped, maybe even arrogant in my stupidity. But it didn't happen. He was ready to go home. "I'll call you later, sweet baby," he said. I drove home alone and in quiet. I drove past woods where I could have been killed. I thought Vincent had been my friend, but actually my friendship with my fencing partner gave me the words I needed to speak in the car. After the car went through the car wash, any clues to its adventure would be gone. My dad drove home composing the story he would tell till his death. His story would come back over and over and over. With other school teachers, with neighbors, with friends and relatives, with college boys I wanted to date, with men I wanted to date. He would ask, "Did I ever tell you about the time I picked my daughter up from jail?" 40 years later, my dad has been in the grave. He was a veteran of 2 wars, and he raised 3 teenagers by himself. I still smile when I think about his last words to me when he pulled out of the Baker County Jail. "Next time you're arrested, do it closer to home." Thank you.